Elena and I have been married for 5 years. To everyone who knows us, I am the model husband. Well-mannered, considerate, a man who once even graced the cover of some gossip magazine under the headline Best Husband of the Year. People look at us with a kind of quiet envy. They see me, and they see the incredible woman I married, and they assume I have won life's lottery. They have no idea what my actual role in this marriage has been. For 5 years, she has maintained a cool, polite distance, and the passionate, all-consuming love I once pursued her with has slowly eroded into a quiet, functional arrangement. I know, in a place deep down that I rarely visit, that I am not the one she truly wants. I am not the man she still can't forget. That's why I finally asked for a divorce. I packed my bags and moved out of our shared house and into an apartment I'd kept from before we were married. A week later, she appeared at my new doorstep, her composure shattered. "Divorce," she said, her voice trembling and her eyes red-rimmed. "Leo, say that again." This afternoon, a text message from Clara, my wife's secretary, lit up my phone screen. "Leo, Elena has an event tonight. She should be home around 10:30. I stared at the message for a long moment, the words blurring slightly. My fingers moved automatically, typing a reply. "Okay, thanks." 10:30 p.m. She would have already eaten by then, of course. My only duties were to run her a hot bath and lay out a fresh set of clothes for her. After ensuring everything was in its place, I left a single lamp on in the living room, a small beacon in the quiet dark, and went to our bedroom to sleep. I was hovering in that hazy space between wakefulness and sleep around 10:15 when I vaguely registered the sound of the front door opening and closing, followed by the distant rush of water in the master bathroom. Just as I was drifting off again, I felt the distinct dip in the mattress as someone settled in beside me. A familiar warmth pressed against my back. In my sleepy haze, I felt her lips on the back of my neck. "Why are you sleeping so early?" she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. "Just tired," I murmured, giving a gentle, half-hearted push against her that did nothing to move her. I simply gave in. Later, deep in the night, she slept soundly beside me, her breathing even and deep, while I lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I eventually gave up on sleep, slipped out of bed, and poured myself a glass of red wine. I sat alone in the silent living room, my eyes fixed on the large, framed wedding photograph hanging on the wall. When, I wondered, is the right time to ask for a divorce? Elena and I first met in college. She was the undisputed campus star. Perfect family background, top of her class, and a stunning beauty that made heads turn wherever she went. Everything about her seemed flawless, impeccable. It was only natural that I developed a massive crush on her. Back then, I was fueled by a fearless, youthful persistence. I spent 2 full semesters trying to win her over, but nothing worked. I vividly remember one particular winter evening, waiting for her in the falling snow, holding a scarf I had painstakingly knitted myself. All my efforts earned me was an icy dismissal. "Leo, stop looking for me. I like someone else." I was stubborn. I thought it was just a convenient excuse to get rid of me. That is, until the day I stumbled upon her with him, Daniel. I saw her soothing him, her fingers gently stroking through his hair. Then I watched as she lifted his chin and kissed him with a tenderness I never knew she possessed. It was in that moment I realized Elena could be gentle and affectionate. She just wasn't that way with me. Their romance quickly became the talk of the campus, the star student and the impoverished scholar. She even used her family's influence to shut down the school's online forum to protect him from gossip and scrutiny. But for all its intensity, their love didn't have a happy ending. I never got the story directly from Elena, but the rumors were that she wanted to marry Daniel right after graduation. He refused. He said he didn't want to be dependent on a woman, and was determined to make it on his own. People saw them arguing on campus, a tense back and forth that ended when Daniel made the abrupt decision to become a teacher in a rural village. And just like that, they were over. Half a year later, our families began collaborating on a major business project, and Elena and I were thrown back into each other's orbits. We reconnected through work, and looking back, I suppose I took advantage of her vulnerability. I treated her with the same unwavering kindness as before, reminding her to drink less at company gatherings, cooking her favorite porridge and bringing it to her office on a snowy night. 3 months into this renewed courtship, she found me shivering outside her company's entrance late one evening. She looked at me, her expression unreadable, and asked suddenly, "Leo, do you really like me that much?" I just nodded, a bit dumbfounded. "Want to marry me?" she asked, a small laugh escaping her lips. At first, I was completely swept up in the idea of being married to her. For most of our 5 years together, my enthusiasm never waned, all because I truly liked her. I had naively interpreted her proposal as a sign that she liked me too. So even when my text messages went unanswered for hours, or when I had to learn her daily schedule from her secretary, even when our life together settled into a predictable routine devoid of any real emotional connection, my love for her didn't falter. I told myself she was busy, and I made a conscious effort not to bother her. Even when I was sick, I handled it on my own. This continued until the day I stumbled upon an old box tucked away in her study. Inside, I found a collection of documents showing she had been anonymously donating to a rural school for years. The principal had written a personal thank you note for each donation, asking for it to be delivered. The letters were stacked neatly, without a single crease. It turned out the school's principal was Daniel. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Elena appeared behind me, startling me. "Staying home for breakfast?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. She simply nodded. I glanced down at the ingredients on the counter, a wave of conflict washing over me. I used to prepare 2 full breakfasts every single morning, regardless of whether she would be home or not. The rare times we ate together were so precious to me that I cherished every second. But recently, I had stopped. It felt too wasteful. A constant reminder of what was missing. "Here, you can have this," I said, offering her the single omelet I had made. She paused, staring at it for a moment. "Eat it while it's hot. I have to get ready. I'm taking Grandpa to a meeting this morning." I put down the carton of milk, ready to leave the kitchen. "Leo," she said suddenly, grabbing my arm. She seemed to hesitate. I looked at her confused. "What's up?" To my complete surprise, she pulled me into a hug, so unexpectedly that I almost lost my balance. "You've been tired lately, haven't you?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "Tired?" "Yeah, kind of," I admitted. "Thinking about divorce all the time is mentally draining." Her expression flickered. "I don't have much going on tonight," she said, her voice softening. "Clara mentioned there's a new Michelin-starred restaurant near the office. Serves your favorite Cantonese food. Want to check it out together?" I was taken aback. "You have time tonight?" I asked, needing to hear it again. She nodded. "How much time?" She chuckled, a sound I hadn't heard in a while. A lot of time." A spark of excitement ignited in me. "Really?" She laughed again. "Of course." "Awesome," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "I'll come by the office to meet you tonight." I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was great that she had time. It meant we could finally have a proper conversation about the divorce. However, I didn't get to see Elena that evening. She stood me up. Just as I was getting ready to leave my office at 5, I received a message from Clara, her secretary. Elena had something come up and can't make it to dinner. This sort of thing had happened countless times over the past 5 years. I had grown used to it. I changed out of the suit I had put on for our date and settled for a quiet dinner alone at home. After eating, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on as the sky grew dark. I started mindlessly scrolling through short videos on my phone to pass the time. That's when I saw her. Elena was in one of the local trending videos. She wasn't alone. Daniel was with her. They were sitting across from each other at a table in the ground floor cafe of Elena's company building. The person filming was likely an employee, their excited narration playing over the clip. "Check out our company's perks! Running into the big boss and that famous educator Principal Daniel having coffee together. He looks even better in person than he does on TV. I wish I could ask for his autograph." The video had been uploaded just 5 minutes ago. The comment section was already filled with praise. "Beautiful boss and handsome teacher, what a sight! So jealous of the person who filmed this. Hey, is your company hiring? I want to work there too." I watched the short clip on a loop for a while, then put my phone away. So Elena had missed our dinner because of Daniel. For some reason, even though I was her lawful husband, it felt perfectly normal that she would ditch me for him. What did 5 years of marriage really matter? In her heart, I probably didn't even compare. Elena finally came home around 9:30. "What did you eat for dinner?" she asked, showing an unusual interest as she sat down beside me on the sofa. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment before asking softly, "Was the something that came up tonight because of Daniel?" She paused, her expression a mixture of surprise and vague annoyance. "Who told you that?" I shook my head. "No one. I saw it in a video." After a moment, she sighed. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to overthink things. Don't worry, there's nothing going on between us. I previously made an anonymous donation to his school, and someone leaked the news. He brought the media with him to thank me publicly. He was on a tight schedule, so we did a few brief interviews. We met in the company cafe, and there were plenty of employees around." She reached out and touched my hair. "Leo, we've been married for 5 years. We should have some trust between us, right? Look, I should still have some free time tomorrow. We can go have that Cantonese food then." "Elena," I suddenly interrupted her. "I don't actually like Cantonese food. I only ever said I did so I would have more chances to eat with you." She looked completely stunned. "In these 5 years of our marriage," I continued, my voice quiet but firm, "do you even know what I like to eat?" She didn't answer. Of course she didn't know. She had never shown any interest in knowing. The emotions I had bottled up for hours were about to explode, but I managed to restrain myself, asking one final, cutting question. "So, you remember that Daniel likes black coffee and croissants, but you have no idea what your own husband likes to eat?" "Leo," she began, her tone defensive, "if you're unhappy with something, we can talk about it. But leave Daniel out of this." Of course. The moment I mentioned Daniel, she couldn't handle it. "I actually did have something I wanted to talk about tonight," I said. I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eye. "Elena, let's get a divorce." The room fell into a profound silence that seemed to last for an eternity. "Leo," Elena finally said, leaning back against the couch cushions. "Do you even know what you're saying?" "I know," I replied calmly. "Divorce isn't something you can just mention casually, I know." The silence resumed. After a while, Elena pinched the bridge of her nose, her voice tinged with a weary helplessness. "Maybe my tone was a bit harsh earlier, but I just met with Daniel. You want a divorce over that?" I bit my lip, frustrated that she was completely missing the point. "If I wanted to cheat on you," she continued, "I wouldn't do it like this. You've known me for 5 years. You should understand how I operate." Yes, I did know her. If she wanted something done, she would execute it flawlessly. If she wanted to achieve a goal, she would lay the groundwork meticulously to ensure her success. But did she know me? Had she ever truly loved me? After seeing that video tonight, the same feelings of inferiority I had felt in front of Daniel back in college came rushing back with overwhelming force. The truth was simple. As long as Daniel was in the picture, Elena would never truly see me. Still, it seemed silly for a grown man to get so hung up on love at this point in his life. I just think that after all these years, I said, trying a different approach, we're not suitable for each other. You could have better options. How are we not suitable? She seemed to find my statement amusing as she naturally reached for my hand. For 5 years, you've done so well. But I don't want to keep doing it, I said, pulling my hand away and shifting to the side. Elena's hand hung awkwardly in mid-air. I've already signed the divorce papers, I told her. Leo, she interrupted, her voice strained. I already explained about Daniel, and I promised I won't get involved with him again. What more do you want? Her voice sharpened. If you're dead set on fixating on tonight's incident, then you're just being unreasonable. The words I wanted to say were caught in my throat. It seemed like tonight was not the night for this conversation. Perhaps realizing her tone had been too harsh, she softened her expression after a moment. She gently touched my hair. Don't make a fuss, okay? Then she got up to take a shower. Watching her walk away, I murmured softly to myself, I had duck blood soup for dinner. She paused mid-step. That was my favorite dish. No way, she said, her back still to me. What did you say? Divorce. The next day, my sister Sophie glanced over the divorce papers I was holding, and her eyes widened like saucers. It made sense. Since Elena and I had gotten married, our family businesses had collaborated much more frequently and profitably. I figured since we were getting divorced, I should give my sister a heads up. Even if she was somewhat pressured into the marriage at first, you two seemed pretty happy afterward, right? Elena's been good to you, my sister said, swinging her golf club nonchalantly. What are you talking about? What pressure, Soph? My sister pinched the bridge of her nose, perhaps regretting her slip of the tongue. Well, she started. Remember 5 years ago when her family needed that big loan? I noticed you liked her then, always running over to her place day and night. So when Elena came to me for help, I just hinted a tiny bit. I stared at my sister, a cold shock spreading through me. What did you hint? She looked away awkwardly. You know, I told her that if our families became in-laws, I would definitely help with the money. I stood there, motionless, as the horrifying realization chilled me to the bone. Soph, my sister looked at me anxiously. Anything else? I dug my nails into my palm, the sharp pain grounding me. What else don't I know? She hesitated. Soph, I'm getting divorced. There's nothing left to hide, is there? It's not a huge deal, she said quickly. Just that, on your wedding day, Elena's ex-boyfriend showed up. I gaped at her. He wanted to see Elena, but I was afraid it would cause a scene, so I told him you two were happy now, and that she wouldn't want to see him. I sent him away. She scratched her head. And because some of Elena's family was there, I'm not even sure if Elena ever knew about it. So that's how it was. That was the whole story. I thought she had proposed to me because she liked me, at least a little. But it turned out our entire marriage was a sacrifice she had made for her company and her family. That night in the snow 5 years ago, that's what she had really meant. Leo, do you really like me that much? Like me enough to push me into a marriage like this? So she married me, but she drew a massive, uncrossable line between us. When we first got married, I loved messaging her, asking when she'd be home, planning weekend outings, eager to share every little detail of my life with her. But her replies were rare, with most communication happening through her secretary. Gradually, I grew quieter. I stopped trying to bother her, even letting Clara, her secretary, handle most of our arrangements. We had a normal married life on the surface, and in our intimate moments, she would whisper sweetly in my ear, calling my name over and over. I had mistaken that for proof of our love. I had brought up the idea of having children a few times over the years. She never outright refused, but she always took precautions so that nothing ever happened. Looking back now, it was obvious she probably never wanted to have children with me. Last night, she had assured me there would be nothing more with Daniel. But what did I want then? The two of them had a chance to start over on our wedding day, but they missed it. Perhaps forever, because of me. What does the sinner want now? I never wanted it to be this way. When I first liked her, I envied Daniel when they were together, but I never wished to interfere or break them up. I liked her because I wanted her to be happy. But she had punished me like this for 5 whole years. I wandered the streets aimlessly until I found myself, almost unconsciously, standing outside Elena's office building, the divorce papers still clutched in my bag. I hesitated for a long time, but eventually I texted Clara to say I was downstairs to see Elena. I wanted a divorce, and I didn't want to drag this out any longer. As I reached the lobby, I saw Daniel. He was chatting amiably with the receptionist, a relaxed smile on his face. When he heard my footsteps, he turned and saw me. He looked leaner than he did in the videos, more tanned than during our school days. He was wearing ordinary clothes, yet he exuded an aura of confidence, maturity, and calm. "Long time no see," he said, nodding at me. We went to the cafe on the first floor together. I didn't expect to find croissants and coffee that tasted just like the ones at our old school cafe, he said, his eyes crinkling with a nostalgic smile. What a trip. He began talking about his past few years. He had really achieved a lot. After returning to his hometown to be a village teacher, he had helped countless children get an education. The school was now stable, and he had become quite well known for his work. "You're incredible, honestly," I praised him. He smiled. People only see the glamorous side. Back then, I almost couldn't keep going. Taking a sip of his coffee, he said, "Actually, on your wedding day, I tried to find Elena." My hand holding my coffee cup went cold. I was reckless and broke up with her, thinking I'd be fine on my own. But once I became a rural teacher, I realized reality was much harder than I had idealized. Many things were tougher than I ever imagined. I almost gave up so many times, wanting to drop everything and come back to her. Then I heard you two were getting married. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. He paused, looking surprised. "I didn't know you came that day." He lowered his head, silent. "I'm planning to divorce Elena," I told him. Daniel's eyes widened suddenly. "You're kidding, right?" He laughed. "I've seen you in the media over the years. People always have good things to say about you." "It's true," I said. "May I ask why?" he finally asked softly. "Why are you getting a divorce?" I shook my head. "Why else would it be? Because I'm tired. I wish there was someone who would let me be loved and reckless just once without a single care in the world." Just then, I heard a familiar voice at the cafe door. "Leo?" Daniel and I both turned around. It was Elena. She walked briskly toward our table, hesitating slightly at the sight of Daniel before her gaze settled on me. "Why are you suddenly at the company?" Seeing her expression, I immediately understood. She probably thought I was here just to give Daniel a hard time. "Elena," Daniel said, standing up, "I'm sorry to interrupt again. I have a few educational charity projects to discuss, like I mentioned last time, and since I had some free time today, I wanted to chat with you about them." "All right," Elena said smoothly. "I'll have my secretary take you upstairs." With that, Elena called for Clara, who was standing by the door, and had her escort Daniel away. I expected her to go with him, but she continued to stand there, looking at me. I was confused. Did she really want to get rid of Daniel just to confront me in public? This favoritism was too obvious, a complete lack of tact in this situation. I had no choice but to try and explain. Elena, it's not what you think. Are you feeling all right? She asked, cutting me off. I was puzzled for a moment, and before I could respond, she stepped closer and took my hand. Your face is so pale, and your hands are freezing. Some employees passed by, sneaking glances and whispering among themselves. Suddenly, I realized why she was acting so strangely. Elena and I rarely appeared together in private settings like this. She was probably worried I would cause a scene with Daniel, so she sent him away, and then acted lovingly in front of everyone to stop any damaging rumors about him from starting. I didn't mind. Since we were divorcing anyway, I might as well play the part to protect her and Daniel. Plus, if she was in a good mood, maybe the divorce process would go more smoothly. Thinking this, I lifted my head and gave her a classic, polite smile. I'm fine, don't worry. You and the principal probably have more to discuss, so you get back to it, and I'll head out. I pulled my hand back and was about to leave, but she stopped me, frowning. Where are you going? I didn't answer. She pulled me closer and suddenly placed the back of her hand on my forehead. You're running a slight fever. I'm taking you to the hospital. I felt utterly helpless as Elena dragged me to her car. I assumed she was just creating an excuse to get me out of the company, but instead she drove me straight to the nearest hospital. There's nothing serious, just that his blood sugar is a bit low. How long has this been going on? The doctor asked Elena. Elena was stunned for a moment. A few years now, I answered for her. The family should pay more attention. Always keep some sugar or candy handy, the doctor said while writing up a report. This can be serious. Besides causing palpitations and fatigue, it can sometimes lead to fainting. Elena nodded solemnly. Got it. It's nothing, doctor, I interjected. I think it's being blown out of proportion. I've always kept sugar and snacks with me. After the doctor's visit, I expected we would leave quickly, but Elena was busy asking the doctor a series of detailed questions about precautions. Suddenly, she was very interested in the topic of low blood sugar. As we exited the hospital and walked toward the parking lot, Elena clung tightly to my hand. The whole visit had left me feeling genuinely a bit drained. Once we were in the car, I dug out a piece of hard candy from my bag, unwrapped it, and popped it into my mouth. The car was awfully quiet. I simply closed my eyes, not sure how long we drove, but eventually the car came to a stop. Are we there? I asked, half awake. It's a red light, she said. After a short silence, she spoke softly. Why didn't you ever tell me about this? I looked at her, confused about what she meant. You've been unwell before, haven't you? Why not tell me? She asked, pulling the car over to the side of the road. But I did, I said quietly. What? She seemed startled. When we had just gotten married, you came home late every night for a week straight. That Friday I had a low blood sugar episode and texted you from bed, asking if you could come home early and get me something sweet. I let out a small, humorless chuckle. You didn't respond. I figured you've probably forgotten about it by now. There were so many messages back then. It's normal to forget one. I continued. Remember that other time we were doing a magazine interview and the reporter accidentally knocked over my bag, spilling candy and snacks everywhere? You were pretty unhappy about that. After the interview, you told me not to keep so much useless stuff in my bag. Why hadn't I told you? Because you never gave me the chance. And I was worried my small flaws would be just another reason for you to dislike me. You don't like candy and snacks, so I keep them hidden in my bag's inner pocket, away from your sight. And you don't like weakness, so I try my best to always appear mature and independent. She suddenly held my hand tighter. Leo, I found a Sichuan restaurant and thought we could go there tonight. Her hand seemed to tremble slightly. But since you're not feeling well, maybe we should have something bland, okay? I shook my head. I'd like to go home for some porridge. No need to stay with me. You can go on back to work. Leo, I have time tonight, she insisted. I couldn't help but remind her. But Daniel is still waiting for you at the office. The deputy can handle that, she said. I looked at her, puzzled. So you're really free tonight? She nodded. Yes, I'm free. I thought for a moment. If you're really free, then let's just go home. All right, she nodded, a hint of joy in her eyes. Okay, let's go home. My mood lifted slightly too. Once we got home, we could finally have an honest, final talk about the divorce. Elena stayed quiet for the rest of the drive. She's incredibly sharp. I think from last night to today, she had finally realized that I was serious when I mentioned divorce. When we got home, I calmly pulled out the divorce papers from my bag and placed them on the coffee table. Her gaze grew colder as she looked at the document. Who helped you draft this? Sophie? I was taken aback. Nobody. I did it myself. I paused, then added, I spent a whole month thinking about every single detail. Getting divorced won't affect you or your family much. I'm only taking back the dowry I brought into the marriage. If there's anything else you want to add, feel free. We can talk it over. She suddenly smirked bitterly. A whole month? You've been thinking about this divorce for a month? I know you're busy, I explained, so I wanted to prepare everything before talking to you. I paused again. This way we can do it faster and not waste your time. I disagree, she said, pushing the agreement back towards me. I was taken aback. What part don't you agree with? I asked, flipping through the pages. Is it the stock allocation? I've already made a huge concession here. Any less would cause issues with my sister. She suddenly placed her hand on the agreement, holding it down firmly. I disagree with the divorce. Her eyes were serious as she looked at me. Why? I asked. Then it dawned on me. Oh, are you worried that your next husband might not do as good a job and people might talk? You don't need to worry about that. Even though it's a hassle, as long as he tries, he can do a good job. I thought for a moment, then walked over to the bookshelf and grabbed 5 thick notebooks. These have all my notes on social engagements and dealing with the media, what to say and not say in different situations, what to wear. Rest easy. I can pass these on to your future husband. If he ever needs help, he can come to me. Leo! She suddenly raised her voice, her tone laced with anger. I looked at her, confused. What do you see our marriage as? Am I just another task for you to manage? I didn't say anything, just turned to look out the window at the city lights. How could it be just a task? It's because I valued this marriage so much that I tried so hard to be the perfect partner. But now, what was the point in saying any of this? Leo, she sighed, taking my hand. You have to know, we're not in a work relationship, we're a married couple. But other than sharing a bed, we don't act like a real couple, I countered, my voice flat. She paused, and I continued. The number of times we eat together in a month can be counted on one hand. I text Clara more than I have ever texted you. I don't know how other couples live, but I know this isn't what I want. I gently withdrew my hand from her grasp. Elena, I've thought a lot about this. You didn't do anything wrong in this marriage. I was the one who chased after you back then. The one who wanted to marry you. In these 5 years, you've never cheated on me or treated me badly. Your mother has been great, too. It's been me, having these unrealistic fantasies about what our marriage should be. We could continue like this, but I think in life, we should be with someone we love and who loves us back. You would be happier with someone you love. She stared at me, her expression one of utter confusion. Someone I love? She asked suddenly. Who do you think that is? I just shook my head. I don't know, but whoever it is, it won't be me. The next morning I moved out and went back to the apartment I owned before we got married. That night, after I left, we had sat in silence for a few more minutes before Elena got up to take a phone call and never came back into the living room. She took the divorce papers with her when she left for work in the morning. I assumed that meant she had finally agreed. The divorce wouldn't affect her much anyway. The wedding ring on my left hand, the only gift I had ever received from Elena in 5 years. I took it off and left it on the nightstand by the bed. Just as I finished packing the last of my things, I got a call from my brother. "Leo, why did Elena just call me asking what kind of candy you like?" he asked, clearly puzzled. "Are you two getting a divorce or not?" I hesitated. "Yeah, we are." "Hey," he continued, "I was wondering, isn't there that small media company in our family that's not doing too well?" My brother sighed on the other end. "It's been years. We've been losing money on it. I'm thinking of cutting our losses." Gazing out at the expansive blue sky from the 26th floor window of my apartment, I asked, "Can I take it over?" By evening, I surprisingly received a text message from Elena. "I'll pick you up for the gala tonight." I stared at my phone. This was something Clara usually handled. "No need, I'll go by myself. During the divorce process, I'm not staying at the house. I've moved out." There was no reply. It made sense. But an hour later, as I was headed down to my car, I saw her. Elena was waiting for me. She looked worn out, her eyes red and tired. I had never seen her like this before. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Her eyes lit up briefly, and she walked over quickly, grabbing my hand. But then she stopped, her gaze fixed on my bare finger. "Where's your ring?" she asked. "I took it off." "Why?" "We're getting divorced, so it's not necessary anymore." "Leo!" she almost shouted, her voice filled with a raw anger I'd never heard from her. "I haven't agreed to the divorce yet." I was baffled. "You didn't agree? You didn't mention that last night. You took the divorce papers with you." She pulled me closer, her expression one of visual exasperation. "Not saying anything doesn't mean I agree. Who taught you that logic?" She leaned her forehead against mine and sighed softly. "I don't want a divorce, Leo." Elena said she didn't want a divorce. I had thought of countless hurdles in the divorce process. My brother, Elena's parents, the complicated splitting of assets. But I never expected the first and biggest hurdle to be her not wanting it. I was almost frantic. "Why wouldn't you want a divorce? Isn't this the best thing for both of us?" She frowned, about to speak, but the sharp honk of a car horn interrupted her. Her car was blocking the driveway. With no other choice under the press of impatient drivers, I got in the car with her, and we set off for the gala. As soon as I sat in the passenger seat, I realized something was off. The back seat, which was usually impeccably neat, was filled with bright pink shopping bags. She had always hated flashy, colorful things. Even at home, the decor was all cool tones and minimalist design. Seeing those bags felt incredibly strange. "I bought your favorite candies," she said softly, her eyes on the road. "There are some in the glove box, too. If you ever feel upset or just want some, you don't have to hide it from me anymore." Then she added, "I've scattered them all around the house, too. And Leo, I found 2 excellent Sichuan and Hunan chefs. Any dish you miss, spicy or sweet, I'll eat it with you. I'll also learn to cook. I'll try to come home earlier so we can have dinner together. On weekends, whatever you want to do, watch a movie, go to an amusement park, I'll be there with you. As for social events, if you're not up for them, you don't have to force yourself anymore." She took a breath. "If what's bothering you is about Daniel, I can explain. The company has been involved in education charities for years, but which school to support wasn't up to me. The office made that decision after extensive background checks. I didn't know they would pick Daniel's school. I found out only recently. Honestly, I know you probably saw those thank you letters. They've been with the office. It's not like I saw them before you did. The only reason I looked into it was because my grandfather somehow found out about them a few weeks ago, so I had the office gather them all so I could take them to the family estate over the weekend. She sighed. The lady who works at the company cafe now used to work at our old school cafe and lost her job later on. I brought her over to the company. Daniel knew her from when he worked there part-time, so he remembers her and her favorite orders. Maybe I came off the wrong way that night, but I promise you, he's really just someone from the past, completely irrelevant to us now. Elena. Leo, she said, stopping the car and interrupting my thoughts. Please don't rush to turn me down. Just hear me out. I thought a lot last night. I really haven't done well in our marriage. But I can change. If you realize your mistakes, you should get another chance, right? Until the party started, I was in a sort of daze. After making the rounds and exchanging polite pleasantries with the guests, I felt the need for some fresh air and slipped out onto the balcony. And, of course, I bumped into someone I knew. Chloe, my childhood friend. I walked over to her. Wow, isn't this the praised husband everyone talks about? She said, raising an eyebrow and laughing. Long time no see. You always shoot your mouth off. You doing all right? I was aware she was an illegitimate child in her family and had gotten into some trouble last year, leaving her with a less than great standing. Pretty good, she said, pulling out a cigarette and offering one to me. Want one? I hesitated. Nah, I quit. Don't want to get caught by a photographer and have to spin some PR story about it. Tisk, boring, she said, pointing with her chin to the thick woods beyond the balcony. If someone's hiding in there snapping pics, I'd eat the entire forest for you. You trust me, don't you? I chuckled. My mind was a bit stressed, too. Okay, pass me one. That's more like it. Seeing you dragging around like that, I thought you were depressed. I smiled wryly. You still unemployed? She made a sound of casual indifference. Chloe, why not consider joining my little company? I knew she was incredibly talented in design. Huh? What's up with you offering me a job now? She asked, raising her eyebrows. Too lazy to banter, I sent her my new company's information from my phone. We're just starting over, so the pay is low, but I would love for you to come work with us. Got it, she said, picking at her ear. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on something behind me at the door. I turned. It was Elena. My first instinct was to stub out the cigarette. Elena didn't smoke and wasn't fond of the smell. She walked over, her eyes frowning first at Chloe and then at me. Why are you smoking? It's bad for you, she said softly. Chloe eyed me, then looked at Elena. You didn't know he smokes? Chloe interjected. He started 5 years ago. Elena froze. Girl, Chloe said, moving up and patting Elena on the shoulder with a grin. You've been married for 5 years, right? Shouldn't you know your own husband better than I do? Chloe left us, with Elena looking gloomy and me feeling incredibly awkward. My head ached. Don't get me wrong, I started to explain. I wasn't hiding it. It's just, at the start of our marriage, trying to handle those guys in the media, the pressure was high. I'd smoke a bit when I was home alone. Her face darkened as I explained. Thinking quickly, I added, We checked earlier. There's no one taking photos here. No PR worries. You think I'm worried about someone catching you smoking? She snapped. Stunned, I asked. Aren't you? She sighed. Leo, am I such a letdown to you? I paused, unsure how to answer. Was I disappointed? Of course. I had dreamt big, and I was let down big. But you get let down enough times, you just get used to it. I've already decided on a divorce. What's the point of making pointless accusations now? I shook my head. No, and honestly, I don't feel pressured in social situations anymore. I barely smoke. So you can tell Chloe your problems, but you can't tell me? I paused. If I must, I can handle anything myself, I said. She nodded slowly. My only worry now, I continued seriously, is how smoothly our divorce process can go. The faster, the better. Elena's face turned even darker. She asked me to speak after a bit. She took my hand, not that she insisted. Leo, she said, her voice firm. No divorce. Since that night, Elena seemed to undergo a significant change. At my new office, I often received gifts from her. Flowers, various prepared dishes, and of course her popping in every now and then. The young folks at my small company didn't know I was getting a divorce, and were always praising how caring and attentive my wife was. But Chloe, ever since she joined the company, would always give a knowing, slightly mocking smile whenever Elena brought things over. She'd just shake her head and chuckle to herself. A month later, we had to prepare some important materials for a bid. Chloe and I worked overtime for several days, hashing out a particular detail. When we finally wrapped it up, I felt a huge sense of relief, and noticed Chloe looked the same. She usually had such a laid-back, almost lazy attitude, and I'd never seen her so serious and focused before. It cracked me up. Chloe looked at me, puzzled. "What's so funny?" she asked. I grinned and said, "I feel like I stumbled onto a hidden gem." Chloe gave a soft laugh. No, it's me doing you a favor." Okay, I replied, realizing there was no point in arguing with her sass. I stood up. "It's late. Want to grab a late-night snack?" "Sounds great," she said. "Isn't someone picking you up tonight?" she added, glancing toward the office door with a shrug. "See, told you." I turned to see Elena standing there. Chloe lazily packed her bag, waved, and said, "I'm off. You owe me a snack." I nodded, knowing full well what was coming. Once Chloe left, it was just Elena and me in the silent office. She quietly walked over, holding a thermos. "Have you eaten?" she asked softly. "Yeah, I have," I responded. Silence hung heavy in the air. "Elena, I think—" Before I could finish my sentence, she suddenly pulled me into a tight, desperate hug. "Elena," I stiffened. "What's going on?" She didn't say anything, just took a deep breath, her face buried in my shoulder. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking the passing seconds. "I'm jealous," she eventually whispered, her voice muffled. "Leo, I'm jealous." I could not have predicted a day would come where Elena would admit to being jealous. "You once asked me why I won't agree to the divorce," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "It's because I can't imagine you with someone else, standing in the doorway, seeing you smile so beautifully with her. It drove me crazy with jealousy. I know there's nothing between you and Chloe, but it made me feel insane." I let her hug me in silence, my own emotions a tangled mess. "Elena, you've asked why I want a divorce, remember?" Her body went still against mine. For 5 years, I've been Elena's husband, completely devoted to that role. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I don't want to be just your husband anymore. I want to be Leo again. I want to live for myself. I gently pulled away from her embrace. "After 5 years? Let's part on good terms, shall we?" She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I paused, then sidestepped to leave, but she grabbed my hand. "Leo," I stopped. "Just once," she pleaded. "Give me one more chance, please." "Okay," I said softly. "If by the end of this year you step down as CEO, we won't separate." She hesitated, her eyes wide with shock. "What?" "That's my only condition." She paused, processing my words. "Leo, that condition, it's too harsh for me." I shook my head, trying to pull my hand free, but she wouldn't let go. "Just this one condition, no exceptions." After a long moment, she released my hand. "Understood," she said, her voice resigned. "Stepping down?" Daniel laughed when I told him about it. "If Elena steps down as CEO, I'll give you my head to use as a soccer ball." I know, I sighed. Her family situation was incredibly complicated. She had never been interested in business herself. Her father was an astrophysicist. But when her cousins nearly ran the family company into the ground, she was forced to step in and take over management. Her cousins never liked it and were constantly stirring up trouble behind the scenes. It had been an uphill battle for Elena just to hold her position. I knew better than anyone that she would never step down. That's how it seemed anyway. After our conversation that night, Elena didn't reach out again. 3 months flew by. I threw myself into my work, and my little company finally started doing better. Chloe and the rest of the staff were highly motivated, and I could see that Chloe had changed too, becoming more dedicated and passionate. On the last day of December, the company held a small year-end party. Jason came as well. Everyone was having a blast, with Jason dancing around like a fool. At 11 p.m., we left the karaoke bar. It had started snowing, prompting a quick, chaotic snowball fight on the street. Across from us, a giant screen on a shopping mall was playing a live television program. My brother was pestering me about something when a single snowflake landed on my eyelashes. I blinked, and there on the screen was Elena. She was still beautiful, being interviewed by a reporter. "Miss Elena, is there any special reason for your sudden decision to step down as CEO?" She smiled serenely into the camera. "No special reason. I just wanted some time to spend with my boyfriend." I stared at the screen in utter disbelief, turning to look at Daniel. He looked just as shocked as I felt, and made a comical motion of chopping his own head off, as promised. Just then, my phone rang. "Hello? Where are you?" It was that familiar, gentle voice. "Downtown by the clock tower." "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Leo," she said, her tone firmer than I'd ever heard it. "You have to keep your word. I'll wait for you." At 11:45 p.m., I met Elena under the clock tower. She walked toward me through the swirling snow, flakes landing softly on her shoulders and in her hair, making her appear dreamy, almost ethereal. "Is this really necessary?" I asked quietly, looking down at the snow-covered ground. "You've stepped down. What if you can't get your position back?" She shook her head with a carefree smile. "Then I won't go back." I turned away. 5 years of hard work, just to let it go like that. How reckless. She raised her eyebrows with a playful look. "So, you're worried about me, aren't you?" She stepped closer. "So there's still hope for me, right?" "Elena." She handed me a stack of papers. It was the divorce agreement. I stared at her blankly, not quite understanding. "In these past 3 months," she began, "I've been handling my resignation while doing a lot of thinking." She paused. "Leo, I've stepped down, but I don't want to force you to continue this relationship." She handed the papers to me again, the divorce agreement, which she had already signed. "Then why did you step down at all?" I was even more confused. "You're no businessman if you don't make a profit." She laughed softly. "I want to trade this resignation for something else. Is that okay?" "Something else?" I looked at her, stunned. She reached out and gently brushed the snowflakes from my hair. "An opportunity for us to start over." She lowered her head, and I looked up, our eyes meeting. In hers, I saw a warmth and tenderness I had never seen before. "A chance for me to pursue you, all over again." At 11:59 p.m., I signed the papers. From that moment on, I was no longer the perfect husband people talked about. I was just Leo, being myself. As the clock tower chimed in the new year, Elena and I looked up at the swirling snow. "It's a new year," I remarked. "Yeah," she replied, her eyes sparkling as she reached out her hand. "Happy New Year, Leo. I'm Elena." I smiled at her. "Happy New Year, Elena," I said, reaching out my hand to take hers. "I'm Leo." Clara, the secretary, always thought that in the 2 years following Elena's divorce, she didn't seem any less busy. That was because Elena was still very busy, only now, instead of being busy with work, she was busy with dates. And Clara couldn't help but notice that after Elena and her ex-husband finalized their divorce, it seemed like their relationship had actually improved. For instance, right now, at the mall to deliver a set of car keys to Elena, Clara saw her nestled against Leo in the mall's public seating area, playfully whining. "Stop it," Clara heard Leo complain softly, and even saw him try to shake off Elena's hand. But Elena didn't get upset. She just continued to softly brush at Leo's hair. "Let me blow on it." "Leave me alone!" Leo was still sulking. Clara chuckled to herself. Elena must have done something to annoy Leo. But the next second, Clara heard Leo say, "It's your fault for making me watch such a tearjerker of a movie. We shouldn't have gone." All this drama over a sad movie. Clara felt like shutting down. She didn't expect Elena to readily admit it, her tone scarily doting. Yeah, it's all my fault. How about I take care of your eyes all night as punishment? In your dreams. How about I peel you a candy as a peace offering?" Clara felt that if she stuck around for any more of this unfolding drama, she'd want to poke her own eyes out. She quietly stepped back 5 meters. In the past, Elena and the gentleman weren't like this. They were the perfect, poised couple in public during their 5-year marriage. Elena rarely spoke, and he was always calm and quiet. But Clara secretly knew that Elena and her husband weren't that close. Even she, as an outsider, sensed there were issues in their marriage. She had heard the old rumors that Elena had a boyfriend in college who had left her just as she was taking over the family business and needed support the most. He left to pursue his own dreams. It seemed that experience had hurt Elena a lot. People tend to protect themselves after being wounded, fearing they might get hurt again. Clara often wondered if that was why Elena couldn't open her heart to such a good man as Leo. Yet, deep down, Clara felt that Elena did care about him. At times during work, Elena would suddenly look up from a document and ask, "What's Leo's schedule like today?" After hearing the update, Elena would nod and go back to work. Once, Clara suggested boldly, "Elena, why not text him yourself?" But Elena just looked at her phone for a long while before deciding against it. It seemed their long-term habits had ingrained themselves deeply into their routines. Even Clara, an outsider, could see Elena's growing attachment to him, yet to Elena, it appeared they were maintaining the same dynamic. Clara felt like something was bound to happen if things continued that way. And it did. One night, Elena returned to the office, looking completely lost. "Clara," her voice was soft, "if a husband suddenly wants a divorce, do you think he's serious?" Clara was shocked. "Not always. My husband always talks about getting a divorce. We've even torn up our marriage certificate twice after big fights. But usually after I apologize and he cools down, it's all forgotten." She watched a gleam of hope flash in Elena's eyes. However, thinking it through, she decided to speak truthfully. "But I doubt he says the word divorce lightly." That statement hit hard. You could see the little spark in Elena's eyes ignite, and then, just as quickly, poof, it was out. That night, Elena stayed in the office all night. It seemed like it was from that day on that things started to change with her. Elena started asking where to find a good Sichuan cuisine chef. She would ask Clara about her relationship with her own husband, even about all these small, domestic things she had never used to care about. She'd openly show her concern for her husband, calling and texting him. She even started going to see him whenever he was out working. Clara was quite pleased about it. Elena had owned up to her mistakes and was trying to change, which was great. Yet she didn't expect they would still get divorced. What surprised her even more was that after the divorce, they started dating again. After stepping down as CEO, Elena had put all her focus on her husband. He was incredibly busy with his new company, so she would bring him meals and drinks every single day, picking him up and dropping him off. Eventually, her husband got annoyed and told her he didn't want to date someone who was unemployed. So, because of him, Elena had left the company, and because of him, she came back. Clara knew that the husband had said that on purpose. Even she thought it was a shame for someone as brilliant as Elena to leave the business world, let alone the husband who had been with her for so long. Still, Elena had gotten a little possessive after they started dating. Like that day when her husband suddenly texted Clara, saying he'd drop by the company to get something. Wanting to be helpful, Clara let Elena know. Who would have thought Elena would get upset? "I texted him like 3 hours ago and he didn't reply to me," she had complained. "Why is he texting you?" Clara had nothing to say to that, just forced a chuckle. She really wanted to snap back. "You know he used to text me way more than he ever texted you." But she didn't dare. As an employee, she could only swallow the bitterness and gently remind the husband to reply to Elena's messages. Clara figured they'd get remarried soon. However, 2 years passed, and neither seemed to be in a hurry. Until New Year's Eve of the 3rd year. When Clara was leaving after working overtime, she saw the light on in the CEO's office. Elena rarely worked overtime these past 2 years, so Clara thought maybe she had forgotten to turn the light off and went over to check. Just as she nudged open the slightly ajar door, she saw Elena with her back facing the door, holding a script and nervously practicing something. On her left, on the desk, was an open ring box. Clara quietly closed the door. She glanced out the floor-to-ceiling window and saw that it was snowing outside. A small, upright figure had just gotten out of a car by the company entrance. She chuckled, realizing she had stumbled upon quite the secret. As she turned toward the elevator, she looked back at the CEO's office. "Go, Elena," she whispered with a smile. "Good luck."